It's like, oh, you live there because you love the coffee, but like, yeah.
Stop what you're doing and listen.
So I've been in Korea for a little over a year now. Technically my year-versary was the day, maybe a day or two after I got back from Japan. Anyway, so I wanted to film like a year check-in. I didn't film this back then, but now that I have a bit of a break and a free day, I decided I would sit down and talk about basically how my first year in Korea has been. I want to break this up into like things that I think are really good about my experience so far and things that I think are like, you know, not the best about my experience so far. I don't really like being negative about anything. I have the mindset that as long as I'm happy with where I am and I still have somewhere to live and I have friends and family, like I'm still doing really well and better than some people. So I don't wanna say like good and bad, but maybe things I really love and things that are challenging. It's not like I like waltzed over here and I was like, oh yeah, I'm in Korea now, like my life's gonna be super awesome. Like I'm still under the impression that my life is super awesome most days, some days, maybe not on Monday. Moving all the way across the world by yourself is like, it's not fun and it's not easy sometimes, a lot of the time. But so let's go good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Living in Seoul has really made me happy. I'm not saying I wasn't happy before, but I really like it. If anybody's like, Kelsey, like why are you thinking of staying in Korea? Like why, you know, what are you gonna do there that you can't do in the States? I just really like the city, and I didn't know that obviously when I came here. It was a gamble. There's something for everybody in Seoul, and I really, please stop. Thank you. There's always something going on. And there's always something new happening and something exciting happening. There's a ton of like music concerts going on all the time. There's a lot of stuff to do with fashion, shopping, pop-up stores. You know, if I'm like, oh, I want to go out and get tacos, well, obviously I'm gonna go to Masa Tacos. Please just hire me. Oh, I want to go walk by the river. Oh, I want to go to a park. Oh, I want to go to a VR room. Well, obviously it's like Kelsey, like a lot of big cities have a lot of stuff to do. But I think that's really good for me because when I don't do things, I get really sad easily. You know, that makes me feel inspired and excited to like go out and live my life, even if I'm not doing something necessarily revolutionary. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about Seoul, is just how much stuff that you can do. I say like by far the hardest thing is obviously being away from my friends and family. And it's not like I don't see them, like I talk to them and like I FaceTime them. It gets really lonely here, especially in the beginning when you don't know anyone. And there were like so many nights that I would just like sit around at night and just like cry because like I was like, what am I doing? Like, did I make a mistake? You see everybody else back home, like all your friends and all your family, and they're living their lives and you're like kind of over here just missing it. So that's really difficult. And not only that, but I also find it's really difficult to like make friends, you know? I realized when I came here, I don't know how to make friends. It's like, oh, you're in school, you make friends in your classes, or somebody who lives in your neighborhood. So graduating and then moving not only into the real world, but also somewhere where I didn't know anybody was like, it was really hard in the beginning. Obviously, like I made friends with my coworkers, and then you know that like whenever you have an opportunity, you can't say no, because every time you leave your house, like every time you go and you do something out of the box, you meet new people. And like maybe one of them is going to be a good friend, and you don't know, but you can't afford to just sit around your house. Something that I also really struggled with when I first came here, and you know, still like even to this day, is like having like basically just having lost all of my self-confidence. Like obviously not everybody is like super confident 100% of the time, but coming here was really difficult for me to adjust, and I felt so uncomfortable for a long time. Just walking around and, you know, people look at you because you're, you know, different or you're a foreigner or something. I don't know, maybe sometimes people just look at me. It's not, I'm sure none of it is necessarily like mean-spirited or anything, but like because I felt so different and so alienated from the rest of society, I was like, oh boy, like I'm like, and I'm not used to that because I come from a very privileged place in America where I'm not a minority, so I don't have to deal with feeling different, you know. So coming here and having to be like, oh, like I'm different, I was really freaked out, and I was like, everybody's looking at me and they all hate me, and like oh my god, they think I'm fat, they think I'm ugly, like, and I really had to like sit myself down and like be like, okay, Kelsey, like you need to work on this self-confidence, because I would just like, it would make me feel so horrible on the inside whenever anybody looked at me. I would think, oh god, like what are they thinking about me, you know, like why are they looking at me, like I wish I could just disappear so they wouldn't look at me. I'm sure it's just like, oh, they don't actually care, you know, they're just like looking at people who pass by. But for me, I was so insecure with who I was and like how I fit in here, that I just really need to take a step back and like handle my self-confidence. A lot of my own self-doubt about fitting in and what that means, it's like it's a mental change that you really have to like kind of like get your shit together and like really adjust, and it was a hard adjustment for me. So something else I really love about Seoul is that like it's so safe. I walk everywhere by myself, no matter what time of night it is. Obviously I'm still like aware of and alert of my surroundings, but that's something I could never do in America. And a lot of the times, like if I'm in a cafe, like I can just leave my stuff, order my coffee and come back, and or go to the bathroom, come back without having to think like, oh, is somebody gonna take my stuff? There's a certain level of trust where a lot of people just assume that there's not going to be much crime, but I might be being a little bit stupid here. And obviously I'm not saying that there's like no issues in Seoul and like it's perfect, but compared to a lot of the other big cities in America, I'm a lot more comfortable doing things by myself, and I'm a lot less frightened. It's a generally like pretty just safe place, and that makes me really happy to live here as well. That's something I really like. What's next? Back to the other side of things that I find difficult. Something that I really struggle with here as well is being treated differently. That's just something that's gonna come with like, you're different. I'm not like gonna try and pretend that like you should treat me the same as like everybody else. But the majority of people try really hard, you know, and they're all so like generous, and they want to like try and help me to the best of their abilities in English, and that just makes me feel like such a burden sometimes, you know, because like, god, like I should know how to do this. I don't want, you know, sometimes it just makes me feel bad. And then sometimes people do treat you like you're an idiot and a burden, and that's already what I think sometimes, so that can be really difficult too. And sometimes people are just rude to you, and this is pretty rare. They treat you like you're an idiot. It's like, oh, I'm not an idiot, I just, you know, maybe I can't understand what you're saying. Sometimes you just get like discriminated against, and like you don't get the same perks and like preferential treatment that like actual citizens and Koreans do. And like I kind of get that, but sometimes I don't get that, you know, and so I want to be treated equally, and I want to get the same service that other people do, and like I want to be treated with the same level of respect. It's like sometimes people think that like because you're a foreigner, like they don't have to treat you with the same standard that they, you know, normally would, especially in customer service positions. And it's like sometimes it's just so frustrating. I just want to reach a point with my Korean and like my awareness where I don't want to be like an imposition on the society. And you know, I'm sure people don't see me that way, but that's just something I've had to like handle personally. Something else I really like about Seoul is just the number of coffee shops. But there's a coffee shop on every corner, like multiple ones. That's something that I really like being able to do, having such a variety. If I want to go to a flower cafe, I'll go. If I want a cafe where I can play board games, I'll go. And that's something, I don't know, it seems kind of silly, right? It's like, oh, you live there because you love the coffee, but like, yeah, that's just, you know, that's what I like to do. I like to find nice cafes and sit down because it feeds my little soul. And it goes beyond coffee shops as well. There's so much cute stuff, and the presentation is nice, and I just love it. I soak that in. I know that's something I really like. I like the aesthetic, like, ooh, flowers, oh, twinkly lights. I'm all in. I'm sorry, that might make me basic, but like, there's a ton of that stuff in Seoul. If things around me are pretty or clean or like nice, my surroundings really affect me. So having a city where like you can find a lot of really beautiful and just well thought out interior design and just bask in it, like I knew that was something I would totally enjoy, and that has been great. In fact, that's what I was planning on doing with my day before I sat down and filmed this video. I just recharges my batteries. That's just something I really love. That's personal though. It's personal. Something that's really frustrating here is it's really hard to get anything done. God, it just drives me wild because it feels like in order to get anything done, you have to jump through about 4,000 arbitrary hoops to get there. You talk to different people who couldn't do this because of some reason, and then they're like, oh, go talk to them. And then if you talk to a different person, they'll tell you they can do it, and that's just how it is a lot of the time. If you want to get anything done, sometimes you just gotta wade through a bunch of confusion. You gotta get a lot of just seemingly arbitrary things, I'm sure they're not, set up to do one small thing. You know, sometimes it can be very convoluted, and that's something that frustrates me, but you know, not to the biggest extent. It's just like a petty complaint. I really like the public spaces in Seoul. That's one of the things I didn't know about, but I love. Let me tell you, like whenever I bring anybody to Seoul or anything, I'm like, you know where we're going? The Han River. People are just walking and sitting out and camping and like eating food and like having fun. I just really like that sense of community and it feels safe, and like that's something I absolutely adore, is going to the Han River Park, and like that sense of safety and like cleanliness and community, the public transportation. That's something that I really like. Like when I first moved here, I remember the first time I tried to use the subway, I was like literally almost crying in the subway. Not only is the public transportation here really clean, safe, and efficient, it's like cheap. It's compared to like when I went to Tokyo, I was like, oh my god. And I basically didn't stop complaining the whole time, which is probably annoying to Christian, I'm sorry. I feel like the city is so accessible to me. With like I can go anywhere and it's not gonna be expensive and it's not gonna take a long time, which I think is a big plus about living in Seoul. I've had a lot of moments of like intense frustration, like why is it this way? This doesn't make any sense to me. Sometimes I'm just like, what are you doing, Korea? But then there's a ton of time when I'm just like, yeah, this is great. This makes me happy. So there's a ton of stuff that has been really great and I really enjoyed about living in Seoul, and there's some stuff that's been really challenging, mostly with me and having to adjust, but sometimes the city itself just frustrates me, you know, and we all have those days. But on the whole, my whole year has been just really great. I am sweating though because I'm wearing a sweater and I turn my AC off because it's loud. Do I enjoy living in my basement with my bugs? Not really, but you know what? I don't pay for this basement, so I'm gonna appreciate it. I hope you found this video useful, or if you're thinking of moving to Seoul, or at least interesting if you've been kind of following my progress. And if you noticed, I'll have a different intro at the beginning now because this is like season 2. I decided to update it because, you know, since I made that first intro, I've made more friends and had more fun experiences. So that's the end of my first year in Seoul. That's like a recap. I've had a ton of great times, but I've had a lot of nights where I just sit around and cry. And like, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. But on the whole, I'm very happy. And you know, I hope you've had kind of a good time watching me get to this point, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. I'm not really sure yet, but I guess we'll go at it together. So thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe, you can do that. If you don't want to, that's also okay. But I don't know, I would. So it's been a year of me sitting around and filming on this camera, and I still don't know how to end these videos. Okay, bye. I'll just smother you with a Ryan pillow. That's a good way to go. All right. Bye bye. Did that work? I don't think so.